Welcome to the 2015 NHL Draft.
It's intense. You're sitting there, you're waiting for the names call, it doesn't happen. You're waiting for the names call, it doesn't happen.
So their table was right at the bottom of where we were sitting. They're probably like 10 rows up, so they knew exactly where my agent was.
I had just happened to turn to look down to the floor where the Kings were sitting, and one of the guys on the floor winked.
When it happened, it was a big relief, I think.
It was a little shock, because you know it's happening, but when it happens, it's like, oh wow, I just called his name. And then you're looking and you're trying to take your pictures at the same time. But it was exciting. He worked hard to get where he was, and it was a very proud moment for all of us.
Registration for the LA Kings virtual Halloween 5K benefiting Kings Care Foundation is now open. Get outside for a run or walk wherever you are between October 23rd and the 31st. Visit www.lakings.com/.
The minute he decided he wanted to play hockey, that was it.
That's always our dream, right? Growing up is, you want to be an NHL player. I think when I got drafted to the OHL, it's like, maybe I got something, and then you start hearing people talking about the NHL draft, and you're like, man, all right, maybe this really can work out.
Welcome back to Nashville. This is a joyous day.
The draft itself was awesome. It was in Nashville. My whole family came down, a few buddies. You're still a kid too, right? So it's a little overwhelming.
Philadelphia Flyers select from the Canadian Hockey League, Sault Ste. Marie Greyhounds, Jeff Carter.
Lucky enough to go pretty quick and didn't have to sit there too long, but I think it's just a great experience.
We love our new home.
There's so much space.
But we have ants.
Expired. Expired. Expired.
It's a lot of house. I hope you can keep it clean.
At least GEICO makes bundling our home and car insurance easy.
For bundling made easy, go to geico.com.
Welcome back to Nashville.
Draft day is a special day for anybody who's been a part of it.
Los Angeles Kings are placed to select.
Going into draft day, you don't really have a team picked out.
From Guelph of the Canadian Hockey League, Dustin Brown.
I remember the Kings table sitting in front of me and knew they were going to pick me.
Scholastic Player of the Year twice.
It was a special moment for me, but it kind of was a blur.
A real character guy.
Kind of think about the team you're drafted by maybe the next day or a couple days after, because at that point you're just so thrilled to be drafted by any NHL team.
Dustin Brown scores! Oh my!
Wraparound backhand score! His first NHL goal.
I've always been a King.
On draft day, anything can happen. It's kind of a nerve-wracking day.
There is so much anticipation, a night when dreams will be realized.
I remember the pick before me, I kind of thought if I got past that pick, then it could be the one. So I kind of remember kind of nudging Fran, being like, I think this could be it.
Los Angeles selects from Spokane.
The moment his name was called, like seriously, I watched that video just about every day.
Garrett Anderson Nolan.
As cool as it is personally for that moment, I think it's even cooler to kind of watch the video after and see your parents and see your moms crying and just see how proud they are and see your family after and hug them all. Kind of look on that, and that's something you'll never forget.
We actually got to go underneath and watch him being interviewed and on the draft floor. And what people said about him, how he spoke and looked at people in the eyes, like, it was just amazing. And that smile he gave me, he turned to me right away, and it was just like, we did it.
Wild thing.
You know what I think? I think you owe us $48.50. Wild thing.
If you ride, you get it. GEICO Motorcycle. 15 minutes could save you 15% or more.
Welcome to forever, man. Let's go. Come on. It's forever. No surrender. Yeah. You know that this right here forever. And there will be no surrender. Now allow me to reintroduce myself. They call me J.O.N. to the easy E-N. Know that we undefeated. Y'all are beneath them speeches trying to air a grievance. But his lines are overhead. Better check the air for clearance. Call the tower. This is our clear to heat the air apparent. Really, I've never been better. Legacy, this is forever. All the more times I've been severed. I'm raising the bar. You can go ahead and measure. Think about time for a toast. Time that we welcome to go. Yo, we'll just leave it.
Lafreniere is a beast. The guy can shoot the puck, amazing release, can skate like the wind, and thinks the game at an extraordinarily high level.
Lafreniere loose it, but he scored! What up a draw,
Inside now. Sudbury Wolves. Byfield will finish it off.
He wants to be a factor everywhere on the ice. I'm not even so sure he even knows yet how good he can be. Tim Stützle reminds me of Patrick Kane and his creativity. The puck drops in the game, and Tim isn't waiting for the game to tell him what to do. He dictates to the game what he's going to do.
Kommer Raymond för gästerna. Pucken studsar lite fel, men han hittar Sundström.
Lucas Raymond works his way in. Oh, what a move! He whistled that wide.
Wow. Ilya faked the one-timer. Perfetti fires, scores!
Throw it, here's Giroux out front.
Score! Cole Perfetti!
Cole Perfetti, nifty move, walks right in. Perfetti, little backhand shot, scores! What a dangle by Cole Perfetti.
Jamie Drysdale is the number one defenseman in my view. He's a complete defenseman. The LA Kings could put 5 names in a hat at 2, and if they just pick one out, I don't see where they could even go wrong.
And we're live.
Hey there, everybody. Good afternoon, Kings fans. It is so good to be with you. It feels like forever since we've seen each other, which it has been since March 11th. Way too long. Well, we are so glad that you are with us today for the live coverage of the 2020 NHL Draft. This is the 2020 Live LA Kings show. I'm here alongside Jesse Cohen, the host of the
All the Kingsmen podcast.
All the Kingsmen podcast. I'm Kayla Knierim, one of your LA Kings hosts. We are so glad to be with you today. Did you think we would be here in the year 2020 with everything that's gone on at the NHL Draft?
I don't know. I mean, I was there at Staples Center on March 11th when the news started trickling in slowly.
It was crazy.
Yeah, about the NBA shutting down. And we all sort of had a feeling that that was going to be it for us. At that date and time, I had no idea when the next time, I'd personally be able to come in and be around other employees of the team, be participating in team events. So it's been a long, 7 months? I don't know. It's been a long time, but glad to be here. Thank everybody at home for watching. And of course, thanks to GEICO for sponsoring our program here today.
Absolutely. And like we said, you host All the Kings podcast. So you've had a busy couple of months. You've been able to talk about Kings hockey without there being Kings hockey. How difficult has that been?
Really difficult. Learned how to use Zoom, right? A program nobody ever heard of 8 months ago. It's been a double-edged sword, right? On the one hand, there's no games to talk about. So there's nothing negative happening, but the flip side of that is right once the draft lottery happened, we found out the Kings would be taking the second pick overall. Then it just became a months-long debate, excuse me, of who the player should be. Whereas ordinarily you'd have a few months, from the draft lottery, and then a few weeks from the following,
right,
at the end of the Stanley Cup final. We've had 6 months or 4 months or whatever it is to fight over who the pick should be, but only a week between the final and now the draft today. So I'm not going to lie, I'm looking forward to this phase of it being over, but then who knows when we'll actually get games on the ice again. So we'll be looking at another stretch of hopefully just a few months before we actually get game action.
Hopefully it's not too long. At least this feels like we're getting closer to Kings hockey. Here's how the show's going to go today. We're going to have a few celeb guests join us. We're going to go to live draft coverage once it starts. Then we'll come back here. We're going to talk to Jack Harris at the LA Times as well as Luke Robitaille to get their reaction as to who the Kings pick at number 2 overall. Jesse's going to give us his insight as well. And you've been doing your draft homework. So let's get into it. Let's do a little fun mock draft of who you think the top 10, where they're going to go.
Yeah, it's a fascinating draft because as Brian Burke has been saying over the past few weeks, generally speaking, you get players separated out into tiers. So you have, Alexis Lafreniere, everybody assumes he'll be the first overall pick. Then you've got Byfield and Stützle as your second tier that can go second or third, depending on how the teams prefer it. And then after that, you have maybe as many as a dozen players that could go anywhere from 4th to 12th. So I'm going to go ahead and give you my mock draft for the top 10 picks, but I'm going to leave a player out of the top 10 that I think is actually going to go in the top 10. So this is already wrong. We're going to start out. I do think that Alexis Lafreniere will be selected by the New York Rangers. He's been the consensus number 1 pick for too long at this point. I just think it would be fun if the Rangers threw us all a curveball, but I don't think it's going to happen. So that leads us to the number 2 overall pick, the LA Kings. I have heard so many people inside the organization, outside the organization, people outside the organization who claim to know people inside the organization. Everybody has their argument for which player they think the Kings will take. Ultimately, I think it'll be Quentin Byfield, and I think it'll be Byfield for one reason, and that is an interview that I saw Mark Yannetti do with Daryl Evans a few years ago. And he basically said if you have 2 players and they can both do the same thing, you take the bigger guy. Now, Stützle and Byfield don't do the same thing, but they both have elite skill sets separated out in different areas. Byfield's 6'4" and still growing probably. Stützle a little bit shorter. So for that reason and that reason alone, I'm assuming they'll take Byfield. That means that Stützle drops to Ottawa with the 3rd overall pick. Based on a conversation I had with Joey Botteno from the Saginaw Spirit, sorry as I wipe myself down here, I think Cole Perfetti will probably wind up 4th to Detroit. I've seen a number of publications suggest that, which brings us back to Ottawa at the 5 pick. If you can take a forward, one of the top-rated forwards in a draft and the top-rated defenseman, I think that's too appealing to pass up, so I expect them to take Drysdale at the 5th pick. I think Lucas Raymond goes to Anaheim at 6. He's playing in Sweden. He's a fast playmaking wing. I think that helps them out. This is where it starts to get a little bit hinky. I would expect the Devils to take Sanderson unless Ottawa takes Sanderson, in which case I would expect the Devils to take Drysdale. But the Russian goalie Askarov, I think, is also potentially a pick here at 7. He's the guy that I'm going to leave it off my top 10. I think Marco Rossi, the leading scorer in the CHL, goes to Buffalo. I think Raymond Holtz goes to Minnesota, but Askarov is another potential. That's another spot he might go to Minnesota. And then I have Anton Lundell going to the Winnipeg Jets. But again, even though they have Connor Hellebuck, I think Askarov potentially could go to Winnipeg. So Askarov sort of my asterisk 11th player, but that's my mock draft for the top 10 spots. I'm sure it'll all wind up being completely wrong. It wouldn't be the first time. It certainly won't be the last.
Jesse Cohen, well done. That was some good stuff. All right, as we've talked about, and everyone knows by now, the Kings do have the number 2 overall draft. They also have 3 picks in the 2nd round and 11 potential picks throughout the entire NHL draft. What direction would you like to see this team go in?
Gosh, I don't know. I mean, they have numerous publications have them rated as the number 1 prospect pool. So adding 11 more picks to that pool, at some point you have to start graduating those players, or if you can't, moving them to other franchises for roster players. So at this point, I'd just like to see the Kings, is going to be obvious, but I'd like to see them improve, and I'd like to see them improve at the NHL level. So I think it's maybe time to start packaging some players.
All right. Okay. Do you think we'll have any surprises?
Yes.
Yes. What are your predictions for?
My predictions are chaos. Because this draft is so deep, and because you can't trust NHL franchises to adhere to the predictions of The Athletic or ESPN or TSN or Sportsnet or any of those companies. Everybody thinks they know how it's going to go down every year, and every year there's at least 1 or 2 surprises. Last year the Detroit Red Wings took Moritz Seider way off the board, and it throws everybody's draft board off. This year, I think we're just going to have more and more of that. Whether it's I mean, I don't expect the Rangers to trade out of the first overall spot, but there have been rumblings that might happen. Ottawa has 2 picks in the top 5. That gives them a ton of leverage. Every team has to deal with the new reality that the salary cap probably won't be changing for 3 seasons, if not more.
Mm-hmm.
We don't know how many games there are going to be in this season. Teams have salary cap issues. Agents, want different, deals negotiated. Players have no trade clauses. Teams like the Sharks don't have a first-round pick I guess they have the 31st overall pick, but they might be motivated to move up. I mean, I just expect chaos, tons of movement. I don't think anybody knows what's going to happen.
All right. Well, I want to get your opinion. What did you think of the NHL bubble before we get to all of our interviews and draft coverage? How did you think it went overall?
I thought it was great. I don't think it had any business being that good. I was, I suppose I'm a bit of a pessimist by nature. So I was expecting some sort of hiccup, and there really wasn't one. I mean, the games were great. Mm-hmm. The first, the qualifying rounds and then the first round where we had, game action all day long for sometimes 2-3 days in a row was fantastic. And then a Stanley Cup final that, Dallas gave a really great effort, but ultimately I think Tampa was the right team. They've been contending for a few years now. They have a ton of players who are just phenomenal. It was nice to see Stamkos, get a cup. And even though he only played, 2 minutes and 47 seconds or something like that, I thought the whole experience was fantastic. I really enjoyed it. And hopefully we never have to do it again.
Right.
But I thought they handled it pretty well.
It was fun for a summer, but enough of that.
Yeah, that's right.
So you were happy with the Lightning taking home the cup?
Yeah, my personal...
If it couldn't be us.
Yeah, my personal motto when it comes to the playoffs is no new happy people. I don't like teams that have never won. I'm sort of run the opposite of everybody who's like, oh, I want the guy that never wanted to win it before. No, I don't want that. I don't want new fans, joining our elite club. So they've already won it once. Good for them for taking it home a second time.
All right. We are excited to talk to AEG Sports COO and LA Kings COO Kelly Cheeseman. I think we're ready for him. Chris is giving me the thumbs up. Awesome. Kelly, are you there?
I think so. Am I here?
We can hear you. Thanks so much for taking the time to chat with us.
I'm so far from you guys.
What was that?
I'm so far from you guys right now. I'm all of 200 feet down the hallway. Right. So
it's a little muffled, but I can hear you. We have missed seeing you. Right. I always bump into you at Staples Center. It has been way too long. What have you been up to since March?
What have we not been up to? I mean, this is this has been a crazy time for all of us. I mean, it's been way too long. We can't wait to get back to the building and playing Kings hockey. I mean, this going through the playoffs, watching some hockey was really exciting. But right now we're just focused on trying to get back to playing Kings hockey. And that's been a long process to go through, and making sure that our staff is safe, our players are safe, and our fans are safe has been the key thing for us.
I know Kings fans have a ton of questions. We all do regarding this upcoming season, when it's starting, if fans can be at games. There's so many unknowns. What can you tell us about everything that you know up until this point?
Yeah, there's still a lot to be determined right now. I mean, I think we got to leave that up to the commissioner to make his official statements. And, it comes down to the government still, and the governor and the state determine when we can get back into our building. So there's not a lot of details we have yet. We're working through a lot of different scenarios, from full fans to limited capacities to, potential other scenarios that could be, fanless like we've seen in other sports. So it's been a lot of scenario planning. And I don't have any key updates to date, but for our season ticket members, the one thing everybody should know is that we're committed to being flexible for all of our season ticket members. We've worked through our membership protection program to assure that everybody has, options when it comes to their payments and credits going into future years if we have games that are impacted, and we'll continue to do that all the way through.
So for people that were thinking about becoming a season ticket member this season, what's that going to look like now? And what incentives will there be for season ticket members?
Yeah, it's essentially the same. I mean, if you're looking into becoming a season ticket member, the key is that you're looking at the future. I was listening to Jesse talk about the team, and I was getting excited during the prep here as he was talking about what's coming up. And for us, if you're investing in the season tickets, know that you're not only investing into what could be for next year, but it's for the longer term when things are back to a more normal world. So it's a great opportunity to get in, get great locations. We'll continue to have flexibility going through, potential limited fan capacities, and season ticket members will get first access to all those.
All right, shifting gears
tickets.
over to the draft for a second. Obviously, it's a very exciting day. We love draft day. What can you, and we finished on such a high note back in March. We had won 7 straight games. We have this, these young guys that are really making some big plays. What can you tell us about the current state of the team?
Yeah, I mean, that last 7 games was awesome. Obviously, we saw our veterans step up and play really good there, but I was really excited about Mikey Anderson coming in, Cal Peterson making an impact, and Gabe Velarde getting to the lineup. I mean, that was our, a lot of those guys were from our 2017 draft, and Cal Peterson was a player that Rob signed, from college free agency in his first year. So what we really saw there was the impact of the starting of the building process. So when you're looking at 11 additional picks adding into that number 1 prospect pool for this year, like Jesse talked about before, that's incredibly exciting for us. But more importantly, over the last 3 years, we have 17 of our 25 picks signed. So you're starting to see a lot of new pros, a lot of new fresh blood coming into the organization, and that those players will, get intertwined with Kopitar, Dowdy, Quick, Brown, Carter, and hopefully they can get a championship pedigree built in.
Are you going to give us any predictions of what you think is going to happen today? Is that allowed? I don't even know. Putting you on the spot here.
I'll let Jesse make those predictions. He did a pretty good job over there, but that's above my pay grade to give you guys.
I do have predictions. One quick question about it, though, Kelly. Obviously, when the draft lottery happened and we found out that the Kings would be taking 2nd overall, that was a great moment of excitement for the organization. Was there a tipping point over the following months where you got tired of people asking you who they would take?
Maybe that's where the being socially distanced away from everybody has helped us a little bit. Either way, I think Craig Button nailed it right from the get-go, is that we knew we were going to get an elite player and we couldn't go wrong. So, adding a number 2 overall pick to our lineup as it currently stands, we know we're going to get an elite player that can make a huge impact on a roster. So, yeah, it's been a lot of questions. Luckily, maybe that's, maybe some days I would like that to be my job, to be asked more hockey questions. But, a lot of times I got to deal with more of the business side of what's been going on here during the pandemic.
All right, Kelly, one more question for you before we let you go today. The Kings this summer started a inclusion initiative as part of the LA Sports Alliance. What more can you tell us on that?
Yeah, I mean, obviously it's been a very impactful summer. I mean, going through the pandemic, going through the issues that we've had with social justice, and the opportunity to really take a deep look within everybody in society right now has allowed us to also look at what we can do within our organization, with our fan base, and how we can make an impact. We spent about a month of planning, listening, learning, and talking to our players and a number of different resources to build an inclusion initiative that helped us move towards making a bigger impact, and with systemic racism issues within the city, but more importantly, creating an inclusive environment for our fans as we grow as an organization. And that's an environment that's representative of LA. I think as we raise our next Stanley Cup, we want that parade to be a lot bigger, a lot more inclusive, and a lot more fans. And I think that's going to take a lot of effort, and it goes into a lot of different approaches, from looking at how we hire, recruit, develop, train, to how we work with youth hockey and ice sports, to how we look at building programs for our fans, and promoting voting. We've taken a big month here where we've opened up Staples Center as a voting polling station for 11 days at Staples Center to allow people to vote and say their voice here. So it's critical that as an organization we do that, as a company we do that, and we're going to be committed to it for the long haul.
Great stuff from you, Mr. Cheeseman. As always, thanks again for your time today, and go Kings go.
That Mr.
That was
Cheeseman's
so
a little,
formal. I know. I don't know where that came from.
I appreciate that. I appreciate.
Thanks, Kelly. All right. We are now going to go to some fan trivia. We have selected a fan from social media. We've got Caitlin. We're going to see about bringing her in. We're going to ask her 3 trivia questions today. Caitlin, are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
There she is. All right. How's it going?
It's good. I'm excited for today. Oh, there's my cat. Sorry about that.
What's your cat's name?
Oh, it's Belle.
Oh, that's a great name.
Hi, Bill.
Yeah.
We can't see Bill right now, but
now she walked away again. She's crazy.
Well, maybe she'll.
All right, Caitlin, are you ready for these questions?
Yes.
Jesse and I are going to popcorn here. We've got the first question. Here we go. Prior to 2020, how many times have the LA Kings drafted 2nd overall? Is it A1, B2, C3, or D7?
So C3.
Caitlin, that's correct. Congratulations. That's right. You've got the first question. Jesse's going to ask you the second.
All right, Caitlin. Question number 2. What year was Anze Kopitar drafted? Is it A, 2005, B, 2006, C, 2007, or D, 2008?
A, 2005.
2 for 2.
Caitlin knows her stuff. All right. Final question for you, Caitlin. Who was the LA Kings' first pick in the 1967 expansion draft? Was it A, Bob Wall, B, Terry Sawchuk, C, Ted Irvin, or D, Butch Goring?
So B, Terry Sawchuk.
3 for 3.
Job,
well done.
Excellent.
Awesome job,
Wow.
Caitlin. You are going to be taking home a prize pack courtesy of your LA Kings. Congratulations.
Oh, wow.
Thank you so much for joining us today, and go Kings go.
Okay.
All right, you guys are live.
All right. That was Kings fan Caitlin. She's just taken home a Kings prize pack. She knows her stuff.
Yeah, that's good.
How impressed are you?
I'm really impressed. And,
did we give her the questions before?
Questions 1 and 2, I think your average fan could probably come up with. But question 3, that's a deep pull. I struggled with that one a little bit when we were playing this before. So good job, Caitlin.
Great job, Caitlin.
Yeah.
All right, we are going to go to a quick break. When we come back, we're going to be joined by stand-up comedian and actress and Kings fan Retta. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.
We love the new apartment.
There is a bit of a clogging problem.
At least GEICO makes it easy to bundle our renters and car insurance.
For bundling made easy, go to geico.com.
I think pretty much all his life was, one goal, and that was, be a professional hockey player in NHL.
Good afternoon, and welcome to the 2005 National Hockey League entry draft.
My draft was right after the lockout in 05. They held it in the hotel ballroom in Ottawa. And my season was already going in Sweden, so I didn't go to Ottawa.
The 2005 National Hockey League draft.
He was in Sweden and we were back home in Slovenia. We never went through this, that was the first time for us, and it was wow.
Once they say your name and, show the jersey, and it was an emotional day. Everybody was crying on the phone. I couldn't hold my tears back. It's pretty cool and pretty special.
Center, number 11, Anze Kopitar. Okay, now here's Kopitar, reach, gets to the front and scores. Here's Kopitar, moving it along. He scores! Kopitar in overtime.
coming from Slovenia, not a big hockey country. It's highly unlikely that you're going to make it to the NHL.
Hey Kings fans, and welcome back to our LA Kings Draft Show Live, presented by our friends at GEICO. We've got to tell you about a little merch prize pack going on right now at teamlastore.com. That's where you can get it. They've got some limited edition prize packages going on right now. You've got 3 different options to choose from. You can get one with our Stadium Series jersey. We've got the silver jerseys. We've got limited edition one-of-a-kind hats. With savings up to $200. So what better way to gear up before the upcoming season than with these limited edition merchandise packages? Again, you can get them at teamlastore.com. Don't miss out. Jesse, do you have your jerseys?
Yeah, and I got to say, sorry.
Are you ready for the upcoming season?
The Stadium Series jersey?
These are amazing.
The first time I saw it, not a huge fan. They grew on me. I really like them.
I love.
Really like them.
All right. So don't forget teamlastore.com to get these
all right.
amazing limited edition merchandise packages. All right. Are we ready for Retta? We are ready. Getting the thumbs up from Chris again. We are so excited to bring in stand-up comedian, actress. You best know her for her roles on Parks and Rec, as well as Good Girls. Here is Retta joining us.
Hi.
Hello. How's it going?
I wasn't sure if I was connected. I was like, I feel like I popped up, but I don't know if you could see me. How are you?
It's a great surprise when we hear your voice. You never know. Retta, have you been following the NHL draft at all? Are you excited that we finally have hockey back, what feels like as getting into this upcoming season?
I'll feel good when I can go into Staples Center and watch a game.
You and me both, girl.
I'm being stuck in this house. I'm like a crazy person.
Do you make it to LA Kings games often?
I try to. Usually if I'm once we finish shooting for the season, then I get to as many games as I can. I had a hard time like a couple of years ago because I was shooting in Vancouver. But now that I'm back in LA, if I get off of work in time for a game, I go.
Love it. You're originally a Jersey girl, East Coast girl. How did you adopt the Kings as your team? Obviously, living out here and being in the entertainment industry, but was it a certain player, a game? What brought you in?
It was the Kings Twitter account that brought me in.
Shout out social.
I never watched hockey before. And I got a message on Twitter once saying, would you want to come and live tweet a game? And I was like, I don't know anything about hockey. And he was like, just come, you'll love it. And I just went and I loved it. So that's how I became a Kings fan.
Retta, the Kings have the 2nd overall pick today, so it's their time to treat themselves. Do you have any opinion about who they should take 2nd overall? Anybody you're pulling for one way or the other? Nope, we lost Retta.
Oh, shoot.
Did we lose her?
I think we lost her, but that's all right. She'll be back in a second, I'm sure. We had her on All the Kings Men a few years ago when our head of our social department did reach out to us and invited her to come to a game. She came on, she talked about it. She's got a personalized jersey. She's a great follow, good fun to watch. We hope to get her out at more games. Hopefully we'll have her back on here soon enough. I'm seeing another guest popping up on our screen here. But yeah, she's like she said, great fan, huge energy, loves the team, big fan of Justin Williams in the past. So
that's what I heard, and I had a question about that.
That's right. Hopefully she'll have some opinions on who the Kings should take 2nd overall, which will be coming up, gosh, I don't know, 10, 12, 13 minutes from now, depending on how the rest of the draft goes. Obviously, we'll have some intro. We'll have to find out who the Rangers take. But always excited to talk to Retta.
I was going to say, I want to get her at a game and get her involved in a little intermission game.
That's right.
On the ice.
Yeah. And I was wondering if she'd ever taken in a Kings game in Vancouver. I know a lot of productions take place in Vancouver, but look, the Kings go and play the Canucks from time to time. So not impossible to see a Kings game outside of Staples Center.
You make an excellent point.
That's right.
We're going to go to break really fast.
All right, we are going to go to a quick break. We will be back with you shortly.
We love our new home.
There's so much space.
But we have ants.
Expired. Expired. Expired.
It's a lot of house.
I hope you can keep it clean.
At least GEICO makes bundling our home and car insurance easy.
For bundling made easy, go to geico.com.
Williams fan, obviously no longer with the team. Who have you replaced that hole in your heart with?
You know, it's too big a hole to replace.
Fair enough.
Okay, fine. Do you have a favorite current
now
Kings
I've lost
player?
you. Hello?
All right, we lost Retta again.
Oh no, we lost her again. We'll never know.
I guess we'll never know. That's right. My guess is going to be Drew Doughty, though. Just because.
Always a safe bet. Yes.
Yeah. Kayla, let's talk about your experience at Staples Center as the in-arena host while we try and get Retta back. Is there anything like what time would you ordinarily show up to a game? What's your daily schedule on game day, and how much do you miss it with this huge, off season?
Obviously, miss it so much. It feels weird because it's October, right? We should be in season.
Yeah, the next season should be underway, right?
So that's obviously been weird. Obviously, our season was cut short by a few weeks. But yeah, game days look kind of like, everyone else at Staples who comes that works behind the scenes. So we'll get there for a 7:30 puck drop, probably by it's changed the last couple of years, usually 3:34. We'll have a pregame meeting to get all on the same page, kind of going over the rundown of the show. From there, we've got a break to eat, get ready, hang out up until really pregame starts. So we'll go up for pregame, do our pregame hits, and then it's off to the races. And literally, some games we're sprinting around Staples Center. So you've got hits on the upper concourse, lower level, running on the ice for intermission games. So definitely get my steps in on game days. But I miss it. I miss seeing the fans first and foremost. It's not the same when you're, watching hockey in a bubble. So I know I speak for myself and Danny, my co-host, when we say we cannot wait to be back at Staples Center. pick doing anything crazy that's going to throw off the rest of the draft.
Nah, I mean, I wish they would, honestly. Like, I love chaos, and the storylines would be incredible. But Lafreniere has been this consensus #1 pick for so long, and the Rangers were so convinced that their rebuild period was over. They had high hopes heading into the bubble that they would be able to compete for the Stanley Cup. They weren't able to compete for it, but they did wind up with the first overall at this point. I just think New York, as a media market, as a fan base, if they don't go with Lafreniere, I think the Wolves would be at the door. I don't expect them to do anything gutsy like that. And look, the guy's been the consensus #1 pick for so long. I think it's pretty clear he's a solid choice. So I anticipate that in the next few minutes, we'll see Lafreniere be taken by the New York Rangers. Obviously,
we talked to Kelly Cheeseman about the end of last season and how we were on such a hot streak, winning those 7 games in a row. A lot of young guys stepping up to the plate and gelling. Hopefully they pick up where they left off this upcoming season. But with the #2 overall pick, how impactful is this pick going to be for this team?
That's a really good question. I'll give you the short version. Probably very impactful. I'm one of those people who happens to believe that you don't build a franchise around one player, even if that one player is a Sidney Crosby or a Connor McDavid. Drafting high picks and talented players hasn't helped them out. If this #2 overall pick is going to have the kind of impact we hope he will, it's going to be because the other 17 guys that Kelly mentioned as having been drafted over the last 3 years that have all signed ELCs or whatever the number was. It's going to be because they all come together as a team, as a franchise, to be good. You hope that #2 overall pick is the sort of crown jewel to show off, to put in the crown, but you got to have a nice crown if you want the jewel to shine. You can't just plop the crown in an empty refrigerator and go, look at that, we got a franchise. So, we'll have to see over time, but you hope that your Gabe Velardis, your Jared Anderson-Dolans, Mikey Anderson, Cal Peterson, even a Matthew Villalta, someone like that. You hope that they reach their potential and that there's a thriving environment for that pick to shine. Use the same metaphor again.
All right. Well, it is time to see what happens in this 2020 NHL draft. We're going to head over to the live coverage. We'll be right back after the Kings #2 pick with an interview with Jack Harris as well as Luc Robitaille. We're going to get Jesse's reaction. So don't go anywhere. We're going to head to the live coverage and we'll see you back here right after.
And would have much preferred. Rather, tonight and tomorrow, we are coming to you from the studios of the NHL Network in Secaucus, New Jersey, and through over 100 virtual connections from club draft command centers and prospects' living rooms throughout North America and the rest of the world. So let me start the way I normally would and thank the Canadiens organization, beginning with Jeff Molson, both for the work they did in bidding to host this draft and for their understanding as we continue to adapt to circumstances beyond our control amid the challenges of 2020. Montreal, we look forward to you playing host to another draft very soon. As for tonight and tomorrow, some things are different than the most recent drafts. Some are even throwbacks to an earlier era when NHL drafts were conducted at league headquarters or hotel ballrooms with only staff in attendance and draft picks notified of their selection by phone. That all changed in 1980 when, for the first time, the NHL draft was staged as a public event in, of all places, Montreal. But the most important thing about the draft has remained constant since its inception in 1963. And however and wherever it has been held in the intervening 57 years, the draft is where a young man's dreams come true and where the foundations of franchises are built. Another aspect of the draft that remains unchanged, whether it is held in late June or early October, is that it serves as the pivot point at which the league turns its attention from the season just completed to the one coming up next. It was just over a week ago that we celebrated the successful completion of our 2019-20 return to play with the crowning of the Tampa Bay Lightning as Stanley Cup champions. And tonight, following discussions with the NHL Players Association, and based on what we have learned and what we know and what we even still don't know, I can say that we are now focused on a January 1 start for next season. Given the increasing impact that talented young players are making in our game, we can expect that there will be prospects chosen who tonight will make their NHL debuts on opening night of next season. And we can't wait to welcome them to our league and to be amazed by what they can do. So let's get started. In the first round, once a team is put on the clock, teams will have 5 minutes to make their selections. The first selection in the 2020 NHL Draft belongs to the New York Rangers. New York Rangers, you are on the clock.
So Bob mentioned it, and you just heard from the commissioner, looking like a January start. As for the Rangers, they've been in this spot since August. Lafreniere was the pick then. He's still the pick. He's been trending this way since he was 16, Bob. But you got to figure tonight, not exactly how he imagined it all playing out.
Yeah, this was supposed to happen 3+ months ago at the Bell Center in downtown Montreal. It was supposed to be a coronation. 20,000 Rockets fans cheering on the hometown boy as he becomes the first French-Canadian to go #1 overall since Marc-Andre Fleury in 2003, and the first Quebecois skater to go first overall since Vinny Lecavalier in 98. Instead, you see him sitting there with his parents, Hugo, his mom, his dad, Hugo, his mom, Natalie, his sister, Laurie Jane, at their home in Saint-Eustache, Quebec. Now, Saint-Eustache is only 20-odd miles from the Bell Center, but boy, it's a million miles in atmosphere of what it could have been like for him. This draft party tonight is going to be a draft party for 4 for the Lafrenières. They are in Saint-Eustache, which is a COVID red zone, which means the province only allows those who live in the household to be there. So that's it for a draft party, is what you see, is what you get. But it's a special moment for him and his family. He's used the extra time to get bigger, stronger, faster, hitting the gym every day. He's now 6'2", 200 pounds. He's also taken up golf, and by all accounts, gotten pretty good at it. You see, he's growing a little bit of a beard there. So it's a good thing that he's being drafted by the New York Rangers and not Lou Lamoriello's New York Islanders. Otherwise, that facial hair would have to go. And we should point out that when Jeff Gordon steps to the microphone here and says they're taking Alexis Lafreniere, it's going to be the first time that Lafreniere will have heard that. The Rangers did not commit at any time to him that they were taking him. That's why he looks a little nervous there, even though I think all the rest of us have got this figured out.
Yeah, Bobby's not the only guy to grow a quarantine beard. Pierre Maguire can attest to that. He did the same. So, Craig, this is a guy who said his favorite player is Patrick Kane. And I think we're going to hear that a lot tonight from a lot of different players. But you see him comparing better to someone else.
Yeah, I see him like Mikko Rantanen. Big players that drive the middle of the ice, that drive the net, that understand where they need to be productive, and then they get there. And then once they get there, their tremendous skills take over from that point. They open up goaltenders. And like Rantanen, who plays with McKinnon, and now 1 + 1 = 3, not only for the duo, but also for the team, Alexis Lafreniere has the exact same capabilities. Whoever he plays with is going to be that much better, and by extension, the team is going to be that much better. That's the impact he has with his approach to play.
So while Alexis Lafreniere sits there with his family and waits, Rangers fans waiting on this rebuild, but it's been kind of a radical rebuild. But we take you back to the beginning of this because it's February 2018, the letter to the fans, this idea that they want to make some changes, have competitive players that combine speed, skill, character, but you may lose some familiar faces in the process, guys that we all care about, but we're trying to ensure that we're building a foundation to be a Stanley Cup contender. That means key players traded for draft capital and some big names on that list. And then you go out and you draft Capo Caco and you make a big signing in Artemi Panarin. Then, of course, last year, Igor Shesterkin, he emerges in net. The Rangers win the draft lottery. They could add a face to the franchise tonight for their future, but this is the man who has been the longtime face of the franchise, Henrik Lundqvist, bought out of the final year of his contract, a guy who was selected by the Rangers back in the year 2000, seemingly did everything and anything for them in net. But this Rangers team, Pierre, we talk about rebuild. This is a different type of rebuild. How excited should these fans be for the next few seasons?
The New York Rangers have now become must-see TV. Every time they play, you're going to want to watch the Rangers. They're going to play an up-tempo attacking style. Lafreniere is going to be a dynamic power forward. You obviously got Artemi Panarin, that John Davidson and Jeff Gorton did a great job recruiting him out of Columbus. They've got a really good young head coach in David Quinn. David Quinn just became a better head coach because they're going to draft Alexis. Thing about the Rangers, how much fun they're going to be to watch. And they're going to stimulate a lot of eyeballs to watch that team play.
Yeah, because this is a New York Rangers team that got into that expanded postseason. They went in, quickly exited, but this is a team that was exciting. They were fun to watch down the stretch of the regular season. They have some talented players in Zibanejad. They have Panarin. They have some young goalies and looking to add a big piece right now. The Rangers with the first pick in the NHL draft. Let's go back to the commissioner.
The first selection in the 2020 NHL Draft will be made by New York Rangers General Manager Jeff Gorton.
With the first pick in the 2020 NHL Draft, the New York Rangers are proud to select from the Rimouski Oceanic, Alexis Lafreniere.
So there you have it, an unprecedented postseason, a draft lottery unlike any other in hockey history. And ultimately, though, it leads to a very predictable first overall selection. Lafreniere, as you mentioned, he's really been on this path for several years at this point, since he was 16, now 5 days before he turns 19. He joins the New York Rangers. It's a different draft, but he still gets the sweater, puts it on. Now a member of the New York Rangers. Craig, let's talk about impact with this guy, because let's face it, these are Rangers fans. They figure big city, number one pick. They want to see some instant impact, and you believe this is a guy who can make that.
No question in my mind, Liam. He's ready to contribute. What does contributing mean? It means that you're going to get 60 points or more in your initial full season in the NHL. He attacks the net. He attacks the areas where you get rewarded. He has an edge to his game. There is no style of game that he cannot excel at. Skill, skating, power, tight games, important games, critical moments. He delivers it all for a team. And when you consider that Alexis Lafreniere is physically mature, that he's mentally and emotionally mature, and we talk about playing inside the tackles, that's playing inside the dots. He's not interested in playing where it doesn't matter. Like a running back in the NFL, if you can run between the tackles, you're going to have a lot of success. I don't see anything but success for Alexis Lafreniere with the New York Rangers.
I mean, physically, it's a jump no matter who you are, but not nearly as much of a jump for him, Pierre.
No, I don't think so. And I think the biggest reason why he's more physically developed, Liam, than most other young players, you can see the size of him right there. Obviously, he's got a pretty large father as well. But to me, the biggest thing about this player is the composure level. When you watch them at the World Junior this year in particular, there was no intimidation factor at all. He was leading by example, a dominant player. You know, Craig drafted or helped draft Jerome McGinley, and he talked about Mikko Rantanen. I see a lot of Jerome McGinley in his game as well. He just got inducted into the Hockey Hall of Fame. That's pretty high praise. This is a very special player.
One thing we know for sure is that he won't be able to wear his favorite number for the New York Rangers. That's number 11. I think it's taken twice, actually, retired twice. Mark Messier, Vic Hadfield. Lafreniere's second favorite number is number 9. Sorry, out of luck on that one, too. Adam Graves and Andy Bathgate. I do believe that Lafreniere has, in his own mind, come up with a number that he'd like to wear, but it's closely guarded secret. They don't want to get into the counterfeit jersey sales. In any case, we'll find out soon enough what number he's going to wear for the Rangers.
When you're in any kind of a rebuild, you're going to need a little bit of luck if you want to make a jump from outside the postseason to being a cup contender. And you look at top 3 overall picks in consecutive drafts, and it's equaled success right at the top of Evgeny Malkin and Sidney Crosby. 3 cups for them. Jonathan Toews, Patrick Kane, 3 cups for them. Steven Stamkos, Victor Hedman, and they just won the Stanley Cup. And then down to the bottom, of course, you have Kaapo Kakko, second overall pick last year in 2019. And now it looks like, now we know Alexis Lafreniere, obviously, in with him, the number 1 pick here. That was one of those decisions that, hey, listen, once it was cemented that the Rangers had the number 1 pick, we knew it was coming. It happened, but now you look ahead to the second overall pick here, and it's the LA Kings. And this is a team that they've had the number 2 pick in the past. They had it not that long ago. You go back to 2008. They had a decision to make. They made that decision. And let's be honest, it worked out. It was Drew Doughty's. You take a look at the LA Kings draft headquarters. So, Bob, another decision for this team. You have Quinton Byfield. You have Tim Stützle. 2 different players, a left wing and a center. Take me inside the decision-making process for this organization right now.
Well, it's very close. It's really 6-5 pick 'em if you want to put it that way. If you survey NHL teams, you'll get more or less an even split. We put Stützle at number 2 over Byfield on our rankings, but only by the slimmest of margins. I mean, almost an infinitesimal difference between the two. Now, in Stützle's favor, he has elite hockey sense, elite speed, 10 out of 10 skating rank from National Hockey League Central Scouting. He's incredible dynamic and explosive quality who commands the puck and can make things happen when he has it. He played really well against men in the German league and was excellent at the World Junior Championship. Now, Byfield's hockey sense is well above average, but maybe not elite. He moves incredibly well for such a big kid who only recently turned 18. He's now almost 6'5" and 222 pounds. There is a bit more inconsistency to Byfield's game, and his overall game may be a little bit more raw. But boy, oh boy, I'll tell you, there are teams that look at him and say, how can you pass on an almost 6'5", 222 pound center that skates like the wind, has great hands, can make plays, can score goals, and can create space for himself in front of the net, and that he's going to be that dominant, point-producing, number 1 center in the NHL. So the conventional wisdom here in the days leading up to this draft is that the Kings are favoring Byfield.
Greg, 30 seconds. You're in that draft headquarters. You're making the case for who?
There it is. War Room of LA.
Well, what I would say, Liam, is that with Quinton Byfield, you have Anze Kopitar, who I see Byfield as being very similar in type. Why not let him learn under Anze Kopitar? And when you look at the West with the likes of Nathan McKinnon, Connor McDavid, Leon Draisaitl, you need a player like Byfield to match up.
It's a good way to build. We'll see who they take. Let's go to the commissioner.
The second selection in the 2020 NHL draft will be made by Vice President and General Manager of the Los Angeles Kings, Rob Blake.
The Los Angeles Kings are proud to select with the second pick in the 2020 NT draft from Sudbury Wolves of the Ontario Hockey League, Quinton Byfield.
So the celebration on, Quinton Byfield and his family. He's the number 2 overall pick. He's young, he's big, he's fast, he's skilled, and he is now the highest drafted black player in the history of the NHL. It's something that he says he embraces. He wants to be a role model, wants to pave the way for other young black players, says this game is for everyone. Kings fans, they should be excited because, you know, Craig, as you alluded to, you made the comparison to Anze Kopitar. Right now, as we watch Quinton Byfield, he's taking the suit jacket off and he's putting that Kings jersey on. You have to believe Kings fans, very exciting, big, fast, talented, and we go back, take me a little bit deeper into that comparison, Kopitar Byfield.
While they've watched Anze Kopitar be a star for the LA Kings, lead them to Stanley Cups, and be one of the very best players all around in the National Hockey League. And that's what I see in Quinton Byfield. He wants to make an impact on every square inch of ice. And it took Anze Kopitar a little bit of time to get comfortable with imposing himself. And once he did become comfortable, he was a really difficult player to handle one-on-one. I feel the same way about Quinton Byfield. Once he gets comfortable imposing himself, he will be more than a handful. And for LA Kings fans, you watch the progression of Anze Kopitar. What an unbelievable opportunity for the young Quinton Byfield to learn under the guiding hand of one of the great centers in the league over the last 10 years in Anze Kopitar.
Pierre, at this point, we're almost a half an hour into the draft coverage, and we have not used the phrase tremendous upside yet. We have to use that phrase, I think, by law in a draft. You have to. But it really applies to this guy.
There's no question about it. Remember, Anze Kopitar was the 11th pick overall in the 05 draft. This is a player that's going to be the second overall pick when you talk about Quinton Byfield. Now, some people are going to say he's a little bit slow to the party because of what happened at the World Junior this year for Canada, where he was not very successful. All that being said, I'll take you back to the 2013 World Junior, where a guy by the name of Nathan McKinnon in 6 games had 0 goals for Canada. This is a player that eventually became a dominant player in the National Hockey League. I think Quinton Byfield will do very much the same thing. He's an outstanding player. I've been watching him since he was a minor midget, so I know his body of work really well. Tremendous talent.
So Quinton Byfield to the LA Kings. Bob, take me inside the person and the player that they're getting.
Well, Quinton Byfield's from Newmarket, Ontario. So is Connor McDavid. Quinton Byfield is represented by agent Jeff Jackson of the Wasserman Orr Hockey Group. So is Connor McDavid. Quinton Byfield played his minor hockey with the York Simcoe Express. Well, so did Connor McDavid. Now, he's not Connor McDavid, and he's not Eric Lindros either, although when you see the physical dimension that he's got, that sort of man amongst boys presence in the Ontario Hockey League, you could be forgiven for thinking that. He's not as physically punishing as Eric Lindros at all, but he can use his size to dominate his peer group with his feet and his hands. But there's also a fun factor to this guy, and we saw him earlier with the double-breasted white jacket that he took off to put on. That's from the designer Aleventi, an Italian designer. He's got his bow tie. He's got more than 30 or 40 in his collection. And I think the folks in LA are going to really get a kick out of the style and the personality of Quinton Byfield as he gets more comfortable on the big stage and starts to express his personality a lot more, because he expresses himself very well on the ice. And I think he's really growing into the fact that he's got a great personality off the ice as well.
I think we should.
I know you're semi-retired. Are you telling us that eventually you're going into fashion reporting? Is that the next step?
For the Today Show.
I'm auditioning for a spot on the red carpet, if we could get that done. And it was worth noting too that Tim Stutzel, and I don't know if we'll have to find out if this was by accident or not, he's also fashioning the bow tie. So the bow tie is in at the 2020 draft.
Greg, go ahead.
Well, I mean, it's Quinton Byfield. That's what he is. And, you know, Bob just talked about him getting comfortable under the big spotlight. And once he does, and trust me, he will get comfortable, he has a chance to be really impactful. I mean, you use the word tremendous upside, tremendous potential. If you're looking at one player that could end up being the best player from this draft, you're looking at number 55 here on your screen in Quinton Byfield. He has a lot of ability, a lot of talent, and I really believe that he is still scratching the surface of how good he can be, and he's already really good.
I mentioned Stützle there and his bow tie. This could be the easiest pick coming up because the number 3 pick belongs to the Ottawa.
The Los Angeles Kings are proud to select.
Side now. Sudbury Wolves. Byfield will finish it off.
He wants to be a factor everywhere on the ice. I'm not even so sure he even knows yet how good he can be.
Holds, fires, and scores.
The first thing that stands out probably is a physical approach. A centerman that plays a lot of different situations and can have a lot of outcome on games. You know, whether it's power play, penalty kill, 5-on-5, or just having a matchup against a player of that stature every night.
Byfield tries to go to the middle of the ice. Nice move. Byfield wants it. He scores! Quinton Byfield!
Welcome back, Kings fans. I'm Kayla Knierim alongside Jesse Cohen. The Kings have picked with the number 2 draft pick, Quinton Byfield it is. What did you think?
I mean, look, I'm 2 for 2 so far in my predictions. I don't think this was a terrible surprise. You know, I had a number of conversations with Mark Yannetti. Mark Yannetti's been one of the busiest men in hockey over the last few weeks, and there's tons of interviews you can go back and listen to him, including one with me. And, you know, I asked him, for years now, there's been rumblings about you want to get smaller and speedier and with more skill in the lineup. And so I asked him, is that true? Is that the direction the league is heading in? And he said, yeah, it absolutely is, but not to the degree that people are talking about it. And that's why I mentioned earlier his conversation with Darrell Evans, where he said, if you can get a guy with comparable skills, but he's 3-4 inches taller than the other guy, you take the bigger guy. And you look at the Kings teams that won the Stanley Cup. You know, people say like, oh, they were big, they had huge bodies, they wore the opponents down. Sure, but they also had Justin Williams, Jeff Carter, Anze Kopitar, the second run through. They had Tanner Pearson, Tyler Toffoli. Those were not teams that didn't have skill. A guy like Quinton Byfield, he's 6'4", as they said on the draft show there, almost 6'5".
Skates like the wind.
Yeah, 250 pounds. Can move, can shoot, can pass. can dangle, and he defends too, right? That's the piece of draft coverage that always gets left out in my mind, is that you see the highlight packages and it's the assists, it's the goals, it's the slick moves into the zone that don't turn into goals but show the playmaking ability. But most of the game is played without the puck, or 50% of it at least. And from everything I've heard, Quinton Byfield is just as good without the puck as he is with the puck. I'm super excited about this pick. It opens up all sorts of conversations for the Kings prospect pool. They are ripe with centers. So many centers in the pipeline. Some of those guys will play wing. Some of them will move on. It sets up really fascinating training camp battles. Will Quinton Byfield be ready to go right away? Does he need another year in the OHL to get a little bit of seasoning? He is really young. He just turned 18, one of the youngest players in the draft. Not necessarily a terrible idea to have him spend another year in juniors, but it just, like I said, it opens up a ton of fascinating conversations. I can't wait to talk to Jack Harris, Lou Robitaille, all of our guests tomorrow. This is a great pick. Really excited about it.
You took the next question right out of my mouth.
Sorry about that.
What do you see his road to Staples looking like?
I'm not sure. There's a ton of articles out there by people far smarter than I am recommending specific training regimens and specific, progression routes that involve him going back to the OHL for another year. We've heard that he's been working out with Gary Roberts. He obviously takes his career very seriously. So whatever path it does take, it'll be what's best for him and what's best for the organization. Selfishly, I'd like to see him in the lineup because it's exciting. It's always rough when you draft a kid and then you're waiting 2, 3, 4 years down the road to see them. But, I leave that up to the development staff and management to decide. But like I said, selfishly, I'd love to see him in a Kings jersey.
Can we talk about his outfit really quick?
Yeah.
How cute did he look? He looked like he was ready for prom.
Yeah, he wears bow ties. That's his
The
move.
whole suit,
Fashionable guy, no question.
The balloons, he's like prom ready.
Yeah.
All right. Just got word that we have Jack Harris ready to video in. Jack, can you hear us?
Yeah, guys, how you doing?
LA Times. Jack, are you there?
Hey guys, how you doing?
How's it going?
Good.
All right, Jack, your initial reaction to the Kings pick with Quinton Byfield.
Yeah, I think Jesse said it. Obviously this was, Mark Yannetti called this a coin flip pick for the team. It was one of these situations where you're picking number 2 and you can't really go wrong. It seemed like this wasn't a big pool of guys they were having to decide between. And there's a reason that Yannetti called it probably the toughest draft decision he's had to make with the Kings. But in Quinton Byfield, you're getting a guy who has one of the more unique combinations of skill sets in hockey, which is when you look at that size and you look at the way he skates, it opens up so many potentials for the kinds of things he can do at the NHL level. Yes, he's got a lot of development, yes, but that wasn't a huge consideration for the Kings from everything they were saying. Yannetti talked about the fact that where this team is in the rebuild process, kind of how they see the arc of the franchise going over the next couple of years. They didn't need somebody who they knew was going to be able to come in right away and play in the NHL next season. They got somebody who has a really high ceiling, who has still a lot of development to go, which is pretty exciting if you're a Kings fan when you think about it, seeing the way that he's already overpowering opponents his own age. You look at some of the play he had in the OHL and the way that he can dominate with the puck in his own end. He can control play. Again, when you're able to skate at that size, it's a pretty tough combination to turn down.
Jack, every year teams they play it really cagey, really tight-lipped about who they're going to take. I think everybody assumed that New York was going to take Lafreniere, which has sort of essentially made the Kings the first overall pick as far as potential for movement or surprise picks. Leading up to this draft, I heard tons of arguments from people claiming to have inside information from the organization that they were going to take Tim Stützle. So then some people said they were going to take Quinton Byfield. There was the whole, angle that AEG owns a team in the DEL where Tim Stützle plays. From your perspective, did you get any inclination heading into the draft which way they were going to go? Did they open up to you at all, or was it just as secret for everybody else?
No, I mean there's a reason that we had some pre-written stories about both guys ready to go, depending on who they picked today. It really seemed like it was that close. I mean, I mentioned it earlier. The biggest hint to me was hearing that the NHL readiness, the physical development of these guys, A, wasn't a huge consideration, and B, that in the Kings' view, it wasn't as big as they thought some people made it out to be. I mean, when you think about the way that some people have talked about Tim Stützle coming out of a professional league in Germany, and one that, you know, is modeled a lot like the AHL, is a little more physical than other European leagues. It did seem like the consensus was he was going to be the guy who was going to be able to help teams right away. But in the Kings' view, from everything they said, that wasn't the case. They liked the development they saw from Byfield over the last year. And one of the biggest things from him is the way he bounced back from the World Juniors. I mean, every time he got talked about when he had his pre-draft media session, his World Juniors performance when he only had 1 point in 7 games, he was benched for the gold medal game. It got brought up over and over again. But one of the things that impressed the Kings the most about him is the way he bounced back from that. He scored 25 points in his last 15 OHL games. He came back from a wrist injury over that last stretch to really finish his junior season strong. And it's that sort of that mental fortitude that you don't always get to see from guys when they go through their juniors career. They don't always get dealt with that kind of adversity, especially back-to-back the way he did. So to be able to bounce back from that, to finish as strong as he did, to have a whole summer to keep building onto that really impressive frame. The Kings weren't saying who they're taking, but I think it makes a lot of sense that this is the guy they went with.
That echoes something that we heard from the play-by-play announcers of the Sudbury Wolves. We spoke to them earlier this summer in our draft prospect series, and I asked them about his personality. They said the same thing that you did, that after the issues with the international competition, that they felt he was the best player in the OHL, in the CHL, coming out of that break down the stretch. And I also asked them, everybody's known about him for a year or two now, that, he's been highly ranked. At some points over the past year, he was rated #1 overall. And I asked him how he handles that pressure, how he handles that additional attention, in other markets away from Sudbury. And they said he handled it great. He was always coverage on NBC, that he wants to be a role model. Everything we know about this kid seems, and I apologize for calling him a kid, but seems to suggest that he's incredibly mature and that he will handle all of the additional pressure and all of the additional expectations like a champ. And, the analytics community, I think, favor him over Lafreniere for a number of different reasons. At least a portion of them do. So, there's real reason to be incredibly excited about the acquisition of Quinton Byfield, but beyond the fact that he was the #2 overall pick. This just seems like the kind of person you want in your organization.
Yeah, the way that some people in the organization talked about him was reminiscent to me of, a lot of time was spent, I think, these last couple of weeks revisiting the Kings 2008 draft when they took Drew Doughty at #2 overall. And such a big part of that story that year were the interviews that Mark Yannetti and Mike Futa and Dean Lombardi had at Drew Doughty's house, had those tough, honest conversations with him about the ways he needed to improve, the areas he had to get better, some of his training habits, some of his eating habits. And then he responded to them. And I think that it really resonated with the organization, seeing the way that, again, Quinton Byfield on a really big stage, when somebody like Alexis Lafreniere was playing very well in the same tournament, when even Tim Stützle with a Germany team that struggled overall had a pretty good tournament himself. For them to be able to see him go through that experience, not be bitter about it, come back as well as he did, I think that's a really good sign. And when you're talking about the fine margins that separated these two players, who, again, it doesn't seem like there was really a true right answer or wrong answer here. You're trying to separate them as narrowly as possible, and those are some of the things that separate them. Another thing is, like, this is a player the Kings don't really have in their system right now. That, not to say that Tim Stützle is a repeatable player, but they have guys who are similar in style to him. To have the size that Byfield's going to have up the middle, that really dominant guy who profiles as a true #1 center, a two-way center who can dictate play in all areas of the ice, adding that into a pipeline that clearly is already really well renowned around the league is a big step, and I think a big add for a team trying to get back to where they were earlier this decade.
To heap a little more praise onto Quinton Byfield, you said the Kings don't have anyone like that in their system. I'm not sure anybody in the NHL has a guy like that in their system. 6'4", can apparently skate like the wind, back checks, forechecks, can dangle, can shoot, and has been on the stage for a while. I know I'm just repeating myself over and over and over again, but super excited to see what Quinton Byfield can do in an LA Kings jersey. One final point on that. He hopefully will be wearing number 55, which has only been worn by 5 players previously. The last one, Jeff Schultz, Braden Shen briefly, Pavel Rosa. Kings fans of a certain vintage will remember how Pavel Rosa was supposed to be one of the guys to take them to the promised land. Troy Crowder and Darrell Williams. So once again, welcome to the LA Kings, Quinton Byfield.
Yeah, it's going to be very interesting to watch, his development arc, how quickly he can kind of, again, fill out that frame he has, how he looks when he gets to training camp, when he plays in some of the prospect development situations. But yeah, I think if you're a Kings fan, there's a lot of reasons to be excited after today.
Nothing but praise from Jack Harris. Jack, thanks again for your time today. Where can people go to follow all of your LA Kings content?
Yeah, you can go to our LATimes.com website under the hockey tab. A lot of Kings pre-draft content. We'll have a lot of stuff coming out of it too. So yeah, I encourage everyone to check it out.
Awesome. Thanks for your time today.
Thanks, Jack.
All right. What'd you think of that? Anything that he said surprise you?
No, I mean, look, the next few months are just going to be me getting really excited about Quinton Byfield, and hopefully the rest of the players the Kings take. There's still 10 picks left, and the draft is sort of overwhelming. But I'm already wrong on one of my top 10 predictions. Raymond wound up going to the Red Wings, not Perfetti. So now we have Ottawa back on the clock. So I'm a little bit surprised about that. But yeah, look, I mean, 6'4", 215 pounds, can do it all. I'm just going to keep repeating those phrases over and over and over again. But super excited to ask Luc Robitaille about it if and when he joins us here.
Yes, Luke is supposed to be coming up next. When is the next All the Kings Men podcast going to drop?
Well, ideally, in a situation like this, we'd like to get somebody who has seen the player play day in and day out. Now, we've already spoken, like I said, previously in the summer to the play-by-play announcers from the Sudbury Wolves. We may get them back on. We may hope to talk to some of the coaching staff, some of the scouting staff. Draft time's a little bit hinky as far as ironing out schedules, but with all the picks left in the draft and the potential for trades, we'll have an episode within the next couple of days, probably more, talking to some people, hopefully to give a little bit of background info on the draft, on Quinton Byfield, and on any players like Olli Mata, for example, that the Kings acquired. Although we did have an episode already where we spoke to Seth Rohrbaugh, who covered him in Pittsburgh for 6 years. So you can go ahead and take a listen to that if you want for what to expect from Olli Mata. But yeah, we'll have a lot, like Jack said, a lot of content and a lot of content coming soon.
And for those that are new to All the Kings Men, where can people go to find the podcast?
You can subscribe at lakings.com/podcast or anywhere where your favorite podcasts are aggregated. But I'd also like to throw out there that we also have the Rainy Day podcast with Cameron Close and Zach Dooley. Cameron will be joining me, as will Zach, tomorrow for tomorrow's coverage. Zach and Cameron do an excellent job. They have great interviews with players from the Reign, present and past, coaching staff, scouts, broadcasters, etc. They do a great job. All of that can be found at lakings.com/podcast. And when the season does start up again, we will begin doing the Fox and Faust podcast again. They took the summer off. They hardworking guys. And we hope to expand our podcast family moving forward with a few others that we'll tease out over the next couple months.
And you're also spitting out tweets.
That's right. Yeah, no, I've got, following.
Doing double duty.
I'm following Twitter. I'm following the message boards. I'm looking to see what Kings fans have to say about it. At the end of the day, I am just a Kings fan. I always say that. I'm just a fan who got lucky enough to have a mic shoved in my face. I never
you
had
worked
any.
hard for that. Don't be modest.
Thank you, but I never had any aspirations to be here. So the fact that I'm here is great. But I think we gotta scooch along and hopefully talk to Luc Robitaille.
All right. Do we have Luke? We're gonna go to ad first. All right. We're gonna go to a quick break. We'll be right back with Luc Robitaille.
Wild thing.
You know what I think? I think you owe us $48.50. Wild thing.
If you ride, you get it. GEICO Motorcycle. 15 minutes could save you 15% or more.
Underrated, we the underdogs, underestimated. Underrated, we the underdogs, underestimated. We the one. We the one. Yeah, out of the darkness I rose up. Golden my soul, it's a gold rush. Yeah. Honor and freedom, I toast up. Kicking game on the snare drum. Hard on the beat, let it bleed out like sacrifices. Cut it open, emotions. Spilling like oil and coasting. Therapy for my mental, I'm pinning a pistol and shoot down the criticisms. Individually, I heard the voices that told us. Yeah. Throw dirt on my name and wish me the worst and scold us, yeah. Shot through the heart and pray on my downfall. But Young T prevailed on my outlaw. Stand on top of the table like John Wall. Got the cross on my chest like Olympic gold. Rap it smooth on the field like a jazz song. Witness greatness, look up in LeBron home. Remember next time for you doubt us. That only made me go John Jones. HGH, I got the shortcut. Got on my side, you got bad luck. Look at how they are doubt us, yeah, they doubt us, yeah. Underrated, we the underdogs, underestimated, yeah. Underrated, we the underdogs, underestimated, we the ones, yeah. We the ones, we the ones, yeah. We the ones, yeah.
Just a sentimental kid with a little bit of attention deficit. Hyperactive disorder, always out of order. I never had a chance though, but I would've wished on every single sad song. Never really knowing the moments I was groaning was zoning by the opponent. Opponent kids like me, Satan sees an opportunity, making me feel immunity as long as my community can sin like me. There's nothing more you need than you can be at peace for your life and realize I was swallowing lies instead of my pride, and I had to give my life to the eternal prize. Now underrated, we the underdogs, underestimated, yeah. Underrated, we the underdogs, underestimated, we the ones, yeah. We the ones, we the ones, yeah. We the ones, yeah.
With the second selection from the Ontario Hockey League's Guelph Storm, Drew Doughty.
What he's got is he's got a level of hockey sense that cannot be measured.
I love the game of hockey. I'll do anything to become the best player I can be. I want to be on the LA Kings. I always have been, and it's a dream come true.
He skates well, he's mobile, he handles the puck well, he has a sense of timing to jump up and make unbelievable plays.
I'll just come straight out. This guy's a Hall of Famer.
Drops it off for Doughty. Kempe back to Doughty. He scores! Doughty, a shot. He scores! Drew Doughty with the answer!
This defenseman, the way he plays, this is not an easy guy to play against.
Muzzin across for Doughty. Big drop. He scores!
And royalty reigns again in the NHL!
And he's just gotten better and better. He's one of the special players in this league for sure.
2016 Norris Trophy goes to Drew Doughty.
Doughty over the line. Final seconds of overtime. Doughty to Foley. Save. Crawford. Doughty loose puck. They score! Kings win in overtime.
each player that was in the, top 10. Deanne, I mean, everybody was talking about the two players, Stützle and Byfield. For us, it wasn't really like, we really look at Stützle, but for the good of what the direction of our franchise, we know a guy like Quinton Byfield will really help us. The way he plays, a full 200-foot games, he's got great hands, a ton of speed. So we really feel that's going to help us in the future. And having a guy like Anze Kopitar to mentor him, we really feel that's going to help him.
Luke, we heard all sorts of rumblings all summer long. Was it going to be Byfield? Was it going to be Stützle? Back and forth, back and forth. Ultimately, we trust that you guys had your minds made up. But with 10 picks left for the Kings to make, are you as confident in the next selection as you guys were in the number 2 overall?
Well, we're kind of hoping a couple guys fall through. Like last year it happened, and the way that every team has their own list, and last year a couple guys like Kaliev and Fagemo we traded down a little bit to get the kid like Samuel Fagemo, but those guys were on our list, and we were hoping they'd be there. And actually Kaliev, we didn't think he would be there, so it was kind of a no-brainer for us to jump on. And so you never know what's going to happen. Sometimes there are surprises. You sit down like a week before and try to do these mock drafts, see what would happen, and we think we might be able to pick up 1 or 2 guys that are high on our list that they might slide.
Ordinarily, the draft takes place, and all the executives and scouts and everybody are on the floor. You get deals, hammered out, often side conversations and everything. This year, obviously, having to be done remotely. I'll ask you to pull the curtain back a tiny bit, and feel free to tell me no. But with the Rangers jersey ready to go for Lafreniere, the Kings jersey ready to go for Byfield, and Alex Trebek participating in Ottawa's reveal, was there some pressure from the league to let them know where you were leaning a little bit in advance to give them time to prepare for different eventualities, or was it all just a surprise as it is any year?
No, not at all. I mean, I think it's a surprise for everyone. I mean, the one thing that they asked us, we had called, say, look, if we want to, get a jersey ready and so forth. They said, well, you could send it. I think the league, what they did is the rest of the kids, they sent them hats for every team. So I think we're getting 31 hats, each of those kids. And so whoever grabs them, they're going to give 30 away. They're going to have 30 friends, But that's kind of why we did it. And we tried to hide it and keep it quiet. I think Blakey had talked to his agent because, no one, we would have liked to have like an ex-player to come in and they're home. But because of what's going on, it was kind of impossible to do. So we just try to do the best we could. But we send him like our trainer, Darren Granger, does a great job at the draft. He puts the year, and then like in 2018 when it was Dave Taylor, there's a little message, because it's a retired jersey, and did the same this year because it was my retired jersey. So it makes it like a good souvenir for the
Obviously,
for the
the Kings have been acquiring and holding on to high-rated prospects for the last few seasons. Multiple publications ranking the prospect pool first overall. Does that put more pressure or less pressure on Quinton Byfield to show up in the NHL sooner rather than later?
I think when you're an athlete and you want to be the best. This kid has been one of the best players since he was a little kid. I mean, he's been captain of most of his team. He's won numerous championships, and the kind of kid he is, I know he wants to make the NHL next year. He wants to have an impact. And you want that kind of, we always talk about culture and character and so forth. You want to have players that feel and think that way, that they want to come in and make the team and take a spot and then have an impact right away in the NHL. And I know he's got that attitude, so I expect nothing but that from him.
You mentioned leadership being important. When the Kings were building the team that won the Cup twice in 3 years, it felt like to me as a fan, every time I turned around, a different guy was being acquired that had worn a letter at some point in his career. And I'm beginning to get that feeling now where, even Cal Peterson, right, was captain at Notre Dame, right? The goalie. I mean, is that something? How important is that to the front office to acquire guys with that kind of pedigree?
Well, the letter is not what's important is the kind of person and the kind of character we have and the kind of leader. As Toby Bjornford was a captain, but it's the kind of leader, the way he pulls people with him to be better. Mikey Anderson is kind of like that. Alex Turcotte's that type of player. I mean, Kopari last year was going to be was wearing a letter at the World Junior Championship, and they're type of players that pull players to come with them, and they're willing to pay a certain sacrifice to help the team have success. And Jesse, you're right. We're really, really focused on that. We know how important that is.
We had a we had a trivia question earlier about what round of the draft you were taken in. The round doesn't exist anymore, but I argued that I think it should. Should we expand the draft by a few more rounds, get a couple more guys in the system?
I think if you'd expand the draft, every team would draft, more players, because there's so much work being done by scouts now. The only thing is for kids, I never thought of it that way before, but if a kid doesn't get drafted and he works real hard the next year, sometimes he'll become a free agent, and it's to their advantage. So doesn't mean if you don't get drafted, you won't move forward. I mean, if a player is a good player, has a good year in some league or something, he will be seen, especially the way communication is today with technology. There's more and more 19-year-old and 20-year-old are starting to come through. And then you look at the way everyone's chasing these college free agents, and they're signing like their number one picks overall. So I think it's fine at 7 because I do believe now it gives the kids a greater opportunity in the future.
Great advice for younger kids.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
The Kings acquired Ole Mata in a trade, which appeared to be, helping Chicago out of a financial crunch. With 10 picks left in the draft and plenty of teams looking to offload larger contracts, should we expect movement on that front from the Kings moving forward?
I mean, we're listening. We're listening to everything, and Blakey's talking to everyone. And if there's something that makes sense for where we're at as an organization, we'll look at it. That's what I can tell you. We're listening, and we're picking up the phone. And if there's something that can help us, you got to remember, everything we're doing is to help us, get to the next Stanley Cup. So every time we're looking to bring a guy bring Ole Mata, like he's 26 years old, and he's going to be, besides Drew, our oldest D, but he's got experience already. It's amazing that, he's 26. He seems like he's been around the league forever. And this kid, we know the kind of kid he is. He's always in a tip-top shape, and he's won a couple cups, and he knows what it takes, and he's going to help our young guys coming in and bring him to the next level.
Well, Luke, we know you and the guys have a busy day tomorrow, rounds 2 through 7, potentially 10 picks for the Kings. So we want to thank you so much for your time today, your thoughtful answers, and we hope to see you soon.
Thank you, guys. Good to see you.
Thanks, Luke. Awesome insight there from LA Kings president Luc Robitaille. Anything you want to add to that?
I mean, look, he said it all right. I think the one thing to take away is that the Kings are listening when it comes to to trades. Probably not initiating any of those conversations, but with plenty of teams looking to offload plenty of players. Should a player drop, as he mentioned earlier in the chat, that they have their eyes set on, if he drops, to the late 20s, maybe the Kings move up to try and grab him. But the phone lines are open, the ears are open, and they're listening to any potential trades that could happen. So, I mean, I think the rest of the day and tomorrow should be quite exciting. And again, just super excited about Quentin Byfield. I just really can't say that enough times.
Beaming with excitement.
There we go.
You're gonna be back tomorrow.
That's right.
Tell us a little more about that.
Yes, we're going to come back after the end of the 7th round. It's going to be me and Cameron Close, play-by-play announcer for the Ontario Reign and host of the Rainy Day podcast. He and I will be here in studio with the amazing board behind me that Luke mentioned. We'll be joined.
Yeah, we need to get a shot of that.
We'll be joined by John Hoven, the mayor. We'll get his reactions. We'll also be talking to Lisa Dillman, Zach Dooley, the Ontario Reign insider, about what all of the picks, what impact they have on the Ontario Reign. I said we'll talk to Lisa Dillman about impact on the Kings roster, any behind-the-scenes info she has about that. And we'll just try and recap the entire day. We'll talk to Jack Jablonski, get a rundown of all the players the Kings take in the subsequent rounds. I think you should tune in. It's going to be a lot of fun.
What time is that again?
At the end of the 7th round, I believe 12:30.
Into the 7th round.
Yeah, I should know that.
All right. Well, we also want to thank Kelly Cheeseman, Retta, whose interview got cut short. Linda Cohen was going to come on. We want to thank her for being willing to come on, as well as Jack Harris and, of course, Luke Robitaille. It was so fun getting to work alongside you, Jesse.
Same. It was great.
We had so much fun. Kings fans, we hope you enjoyed it. Thank you all for tuning in. Again, we hope to see you at a game very soon. Who knows when that'll be, but we'll be
January
optimistic
1st.
over here. January 1st. All right. I like that. Thank you, guys. And don't miss it. Jesse will be back with you tomorrow, and we'll see you all soon.
Go Kings, go.
Go Kings, go.